So,
Put my controller away. Yeah, you ready?
you made me watch Elephant.
Yeah, I did, man.
Man, I have never rooted for bullets harder in a movie.
Oh no. Uh, all right, so I picked Elephant because um back when I really started like stretching my legs as far as kind of um watching movies that weren't all Spider-Man or Disney.
Yeah,
Um yeah, like I this one, A Clockwork Orange, and I think a Requiem for a Dream. I all watched like within a couple of months of each other.
yeah.
Um, and
Not
I
enough
don't,
explosions and zombies.
yeah, I
Had
don't know
so
what
much
drew
of
me to
those. You're
it.
like, let's go the opposite direction.
Yeah,
Filmmakers not under the thumb of wanting to make a profit.
yeah, well, that's yeah. Um, and I don't know what drew me to it. I only vaguely knew of Gus Van Sant because of Good Will Hunting, and
Right.
then he had done that shot for shot remake of Psycho. Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't know, like I watched it and I remembered it almost verbatim as it happens. I mean, it's
Right.
been nearly 20 years since I've seen it, um, except for the ending. But yeah, we'll get there.
So, what you're telling me is you saw this as like your intro to independent film,
Yeah,
and you couldn't think of any better independent film. I kid. I am,
uh,
however, I incidentally very angry at the 80 minutes you stole from my life making me watch this movie.
man, I was hoping that it would be. Um, I mean, I didn't think you would love it, but if
Oh,
it helps at all, mostly everybody in the film is it was either their first or only role that they've ever done.
right.
Um,
They're playing
so
themselves too.
yeah, yeah. Well, their names. Obviously, the guys that shoot up the school didn't really shoot up the school, but
Right.
um,
Right.
so yeah, I guess that segues into what the film's about. Is it's it takes place kind of within maybe a couple of hours in one morning at an Oregon school, where two guys that have been picked on decide that they only thing that they can do to get the comeuppance is to murder everybody that they can.
I
So
disagree with your analysis with your summary of the movie.
yeah, okay.
I to a degree that is, but honestly, the movie to me in no way says that they did this because they were picked on. Like they were picked on. They were maybe, I don't know. Like it goes through so many reasons why they could have done this.
I do think that I mean I think I know what you're getting at. I think that Alex, the one that was definitely the mastermind behind it, is a sociopath. I think
The
that
piano player, right?
yes,
Okay.
I think that he has no real emotion.
Yeah.
Um,
Spoilers, by the way.
yeah, way spoilers. So let's start from the beginning. So it opens
Okay.
up, and John, played
Let's
by
well before a character is
yeah,
introduced. I want
yeah,
to tell
way
you
before.
how disappointed I was because the first shot I'm looking at as credits are rolling is kind of a time lapse video of a telephone pole. And
Yeah,
it's not a short time lapse thing. It's like hours are like flying by as we are staring at a telephone pole. Now, the telephone pole has great symbolism in this movie. It symbolizes that you will be staring at nothing, hoping for something to happen, and it won't. It is a metaphor for the movie.
It does meander. Like that's one thing I actually have in my notes, that it's a like mumblecore. It's a very mumblecore style film, except that it's not about the banality of life. It's about I mean, it's got more serious context, but
yeah.
So Timothy Bottoms is the biggest name in this entire film. It's the guy playing the dad.
The dad.
He's had numerous television and film roles, but he is reduced to an alcoholic essentially. So he's driving John, his son, to school.
Yeah.
Who is the most towhead kid I think I've ever seen in my life.
His hair has a cuticle. I mean, it's that.
He, I don't know if you knew this. He was in the Transformers movie.
I didn't.
He was Shia LaBeouf's buddy, but also he was Stacy Peralta in Lords of Dogtown.
Oh, I saw that movie like once.
Yeah, I really, 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 really like that movie, but I really liked skateboarding, liked skateboarding, and I liked the Dogtown and the Z-Boys documentary. So I've seen it a healthy amount of times. But yeah, that's where I know John.
John.
Yeah. John.
Yeah.
I can't remember his last name, but anyway.
I didn't recognize him. I saw this opening and thought to myself, all right, we're building up this character for a reason, and we're being deliberately kept from knowing much about him. And so you've got this whole opening where it's like, I honestly thought, like, I'm trying to learn this character only from like half of the action that's supposed to be going on. I'm supposed to be inferring a lot of things. No, they're just like, they're not going to back things up. They're not going to build characters. They just are these guys, and they have a day.
Yeah. And I think that's, there's little to zero character development in this entire film. I think that it's intentional, rather than creating these elaborate characters and having these defined personalities. You're better able to project yourself to show you that this could have been anywhere.
I might agree with you if I thought that there was much about this movie that was deliberate.
Okay.
So, all right. So about the mumble acting. Here's what I think happened. This is either the director got amazing performances out of these actors, and I mean like amazing, convinced them all to behave as bad actors, convinced them to behave as bad actors. Or he got people who are not actors, didn't give them a script, and was just like, hey, walk by that guy, say hi, he's going to take your picture, and then you move on. Yeah. And then he just filmed them kind of like ad-libbing things, and that's why they don't feel really confident in anything they say, because it's completely unrehearsed. It is improv. I genuinely think that had to be how they filmed this. And that's why it's so uninteresting. That's why there are no lines. Like, I cannot actually think of anything anyone said in this entire movie.
Right. I mean, even down to like, hey, you're going to the concert. It wasn't like a specific show. It was, oh, you're going to the concert? No, my mom's being a bitch.
Okay.
All right. I think that I don't think you're wrong. I think that it's definitely more Christopher Guest style, like, here's kind of, and I wouldn't say that they're the same style movie.
No, I know what you mean. But like the filming technique, the way they filmed The Office, they have kind of a general outline, maybe a few pre-written jokes, but really you just improv, you just feel out the scene. And
where I think that most of it is deliberate, though, or can be argued, is the way that it's the continuity is
continuity
shown.
is interesting. I really like it's the most interesting part of the movie. And two
Yeah,
people shoot like a whole bunch of people, and the most interesting thing is the continuity.
yeah, and I think that speaks to that it's a very stylized film. I had read an analysis. I didn't want to read too much because I didn't want any of my own thoughts to be
Sure.
muddled, but I read something interesting where they said that I think it's Truffaut said you can't make an anti-war war film because war in and of itself is exciting. It said, but Van Zandt was able to create a, a violent film with zero excitement. He drained all of the excitement out of the violence. It's like there's no one that's going to watch this and be like, yeah, like that looks like it's
Yeah,
unsettling from start to finish of their whole thing. It's very just unnerving. And
that's
yeah, I think
true.
that's why it sticks with me is that it's so like he could have done this in so many different ways, and he deliberately chose to one not actually show much. I mean, there's some blood, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Um, and he doesn't really show anyone. Mm, shows like one or two people like get like actually very visibly shot. But yeah, I think that was an interesting thing is saying that like, especially since this movie was pegged by the media in 2005, they were blaming this movie for a spree shooting in Minnesota. They were saying because this kid had watched the movie but if you watch it, you're like, no, like there's no one that's going to
Watch
watch
this
this and
and
be
be
like,
like,
yeah,
like anyone who watches this movie, they're not going to be planning a shooting because they're going to be like, that sounds boring as hell. Like,
you know.
like if they were
And
planning to
even
shoot at their school and they watch this movie, they'll be like, I'll do something interesting, like read a book.
yeah, and like even they go one of their bombs or whatever doesn't go off, and he's like, plan B. Like it
But
wasn't even like, oh no, we got to do something else. It's just like, guess we'll just go to plan B. But I think that also adds to, again, I think that Alex is he's a sociopath. And I think that he's trying to go through the motions of like watching the Nazi documentary by playing Fur-Elise and Moonlight Sonata by Austrian or German composer. It's like he's trying to be like exemplify Hitler or whatever. But that might also
he
just be a statement
he
too,
quotes
because it's based
someone
on Columbine.
when he's holding the gun, he's walking through the school, he's quoting someone, and I couldn't catch the quote because it's mumbled like everything else. Um, the worst sound design of any movie ever. Like you could not ask for worse. Like there's kids in the lunchroom because there's several scenes in the lunchroom, like kids looking around getting lunch, and they're having a conversation, but you can't understand the conversation because the sound is completely occupied by plates and scraping of utensils. Ugh. Like it was hard to watch because like I wanted to like go back and be like, no, I'm sure what they were saying is important. But then like the thing that stopped me was going, wait, nothing is important. And I don't
Nothing.
want to
Yeah.
spend a second more in that.
So in that vein, all right. May I offer a counterpoint, if you will?
Okay.
Um, I think that there are places where the sound design is actually pretty brilliant.
Okay.
But getting there, when I was doing my senior project in my film school, uh, I chose to do like use Ken Burns on a bunch of photos, and I had a narration that I did, and I deliberately made there's a spot in Echoes, Pink Floyd song, between the two chunks that's just like wailing guitars and crows and just cacophony, and
Okay.
that's in the background of my film, and it gets louder as it goes, and my narration gets softer, so you can't hear what I'm saying. But I did it deliberately because it didn't matter what my story was. What mattered was what you put there. Like I wanted the audience to kind of replace whatever my idea was with what they thought was happening.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's what was going on. I'm just saying that maybe it may have been deliberate, but
There are some places where the sound gets deliberately muffled because the character we are focusing on at that point isn't listening to
right.
other things. The Benny scene comes to mind,
That's sad.
where Benny is approaching one of the shooters who's got the principal, I think,
Mm-hmm.
laying on the ground, and he can't hear what they're talking about because he's not listening to that. He's thinking about sneaking up on the shooter.
Ineffectively or ineffectively.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of that like anticlimax that is it's not fulfilling to what we want to see.
Right. We don't get those narratives we want from the story, and that does seem deliberate.
Yeah.
So a bit, I mean, I suppose we could go into each of the characters that we see.
Yeah. So you have John.
You
You
want,
have
right. Well, with John, you want resolution to his father.
right.
His father drove drunk. His father is stuck at the school. Like, what's he going to do there?
Right. And I think going back to what you said about bad acting, man, like if I saw geared guys knowing what was going on, I wouldn't be like, hey, don't go into school. Trust me, just don't. I would be losing my damn mind. Don't go in. There's people that are going to shoot the school. Like, I would be doing whatever I could to keep people out of there. And he's just like, but
Like,
again,
yeah.
maybe it's just shock. I don't know. I don't know how I would be in that situation because thankfully I've never been in that.
Well, like he didn't see the guns. That's a big thing. Is when the guys go by him, he doesn't see the guns. He just sees them with like bags that look like they could have guns. They're definitely geared up, and he's like, "Hey, don't come back.
Yeah.
Bad stuff's about to go down." And so, like, he may not want to be like, "There's definitely guns in there," if there are not guns in there. But at
True.
the same time, not wanting to do nothing, so he winds up with this half measure. But
Yeah. So yeah, we have John.
yeah,
Then there's the most frustrating sequence of the entire film. Yes, the lamppost or telephone pole is something, but I think it's the whole credit sequence where the camera is just set and we watch people play football badly. And then Michelle walks by, stops and looks at the sky, and then goes, and then it's all one take. Because then
yeah,
Nathan comes and grabs his hoodie. We watch him put it on, and then we follow him through the school. It's like a 5-minute
shot.
shocking
Yeah,
shot of just like, why is this happening?
there is a lot of footage of people walking and nothing happening. Like it's not even just this one shot. Like the like oh god, I'm blanking on her name now. The girl, the female, uh,
Michelle?
Michelle, yeah, where she walks across a gym,
Yeah.
and like I'm sitting there, like, here it is. This has got to be it.
Yeah.
Something has to happen, and nothing happens. But yeah, just like that, where Nathan's like, I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna walk past these three girls, and they're gonna look at me really weird, and like they forgot what they were supposed to do in this shot,
Right.
and nothing happens. It
So
is
I read that Van Zant said that he had just started like kind of getting into video games at this time, and he
Okay.
compared it to Tomb Raider. And he said that when you have to watch them travel from place to place, whereas in a film it's kind of glossed over. And I'm like, it's because it doesn't work in a movie.
Right. We don't get to control Nathan. We are stuck watching his ass for nothing. It's like,
Yeah,
oh,
and I think the most tragic of all of the stories has to be Michelle's story because she's very clearly has like Asperger's or something. Um,
yeah.
or maybe that's just me projecting what I think. I think she's definitely like a social outcast because the girls call her granny panties or whatever, and then she's the
That's what
first.
she hears. Honestly, I thought that was probably the most interesting little segment is like
Yeah,
you can't clearly hear what's going on back there, but every now and then you hear a word like loser or granny panties or something like
yeah,
that. And we don't know that's associated with her,
it's
but it's
true.
probably associated with her. And she
Yeah,
definitely thinks it's associated with her. Like that's why they think those words come through clearly is because
true. See, deliberate sound design.
it wasn't bad sound design. Um,
There are times maybe it was though. I think and this is good. This is why it's good to talk about them because I had a great in my mind. I'm like, yeah, Elephant was this really great film, and I'm watching it again. I'm like, oh man,
maybe it
there
wasn't
are
this.
things I wish I could change, but I do think it has its merits.
No, it
Um,
it does.
so we've got John, we have Nathan and Carrie, his girlfriend, who apparently is very overprotective, as we learn from Brittany, Nicole, and Jordan, the three girls that he
Right.
passes by. Um, and this is why I say the continuity is really interesting because it seems like there's not a whole lot of thought put into what they say, but it always matches up. It's always
Yeah.
exactly the same. Their
Right.
motions are exactly the same because Van Zant doesn't have like he's not doing camera tricks to hide the two cameras that are
Right.
catching it. Two different shots.
It
It
is.
has to be
Mm-hmm.
so, or three different shots because then there's one in the hallway. We've got one with John, one with Eli, and then one with Michelle. So it's
Which
three
one's
different
Eli?
shots.
The photographer?
He's the artsy one, yeah,
Yeah.
who has the fork bent around his wrist.
I thought the fork was kind of cool. I was like, this feels real, like something
Yes,
a teenager would do. And that's honestly why
he's
I had thoughts that like these kids just wore their regular ass clothes
yeah,
to
he's
school, and this dude filmed them.
he's a more realistic arts like arty kind of high schooler than uh Wes Bentley in American Beauty.
Yeah.
Like, let me film this empty bag. I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I like Michelle's story. I like how she honestly feels like one of the scenes where like her PE coach is trying to talk to her about her pants. To me, I this was back when I still had hope for the movie. Um, I was watching the scene going, this is showing this girl have pressure from her peers because her peers are making fun of her, but also pressure from the teachers who are just like, conform, go ahead and
yeah,
conform like all the other girls do. I don't want it to become a problem that you're not like them, And I was like, ooh, this is maybe something, but that's all. Like now, I am convinced that is me looking way too deep into a movie that was not
maybe
there.
not though. So again, what makes it more tragic is that yeah, she could have had this entire arc of where she stands against the conformity, but she's
Yeah.
the first casualty. She's the
Hmm.
first one that dies.
Right.
So like my heart breaks at that scene because she's just they have a gun pointed at her and I think she says like you guys can't and like that's all she says
Right.
before
Yeah.
over her life is done. Just
Yeah, she's just trying to be helpful.
someone that ran to her like volunteer position at the library because she didn't want to
Right.
be late, and then the librarian gives her shit for, oh, glad you could make it. Like, come on, she's
Fine,
probably the
get someone
best one
else.
you have there.
She's not getting paid. Like,
Yeah, come
why
on.
don't you hire somebody?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't like the principal, man. Because so you see John, we have no reason to believe that John's a troublemaker. He's popular with like everybody he passes. Everyone's like, oh hey, oh
Yeah.
hey. Um, and he is calling his brother to have him come pick up his drunk father.
Right.
And the principal's just like, in my office, and then gives him detention. Like, can you not infer what's going on? Who's going to give a kid a detention because he has to look after his drunk ass father?
And the thing that bothers me is he never once is like, "Hey, can I talk to you? I got
Yeah,
a lot of stuff going on." And this seems like a really confident kid, a really competent kid who doesn't have trouble like expressing himself, but at the same time, he's
yeah,
just like, "I guess I'll just take this punishment. Obviously, my fault. By the way, can you hold these keys? My dad's drunk in the passenger seat."
yeah. So we have John, Eli, Nathan, and Carrie, the three girls, and
Michelle.
then Michelle, and then we have Alex and Eric.
It's
So
Alex and Eric.
Alex is he seems bright. He's artistic. He's he can play the piano, but he only plays the two Beethoven pieces that he plays for Elise and Moonlight Sonata.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Eric, who is very much like an Eminem prototype, um, oh, it sounds nice, and then goes to playing some
The
like first person shooter.
the worst video game ever.
Yeah, like where when you kill someone, their feet like are upright. And I
But
was put in my notes that it looks like Desert Storm just because there's literally just blue sky and then
right,
like beige, and
right.
then all you're doing is walking through and shooting things. And I was like,
But not only that, like the bad guys don't shoot back if they are bad guys at all. Like they slightly walk away, so he only shoots people in the back. Like
uh-huh.
everyone in this game is getting shot in the back, and then their feet go up in the air.
Yep.
Like even like Steam Greenlight, which publishes any video game, no matter how bad, like would look at this and go, "You got to finish it first."
I mean, do you
Oh,
think that that's a statement to like Van Zant saying that these guys are cowards because they are only shooting people who are unarmed and in the back,
I think the
or
video
is it not that
game.
deep?
I think the video game was designed to replicate what would later happen with them actually shooting. Like if you'll notice, like when they're talking about the shooting, um, it cuts to a shot of them shooting people, and you see the gun, and it's the first
Mm-hmm.
person
First
shooter
person.
perspective, where you see the gun and people being shot. Like Van Sant directly connects the game footage to the shooting footage. Um, but honestly, to me, I think he wanted a more interesting game and didn't have the ability to make a more interesting game. And this
Yeah.
was like, hey,
I mean, shit, he could have used Doom. Like, how
no,
much is
Doom has
licensing
license.
for Doom?
I don't think if he went to the Doom company and was like, hey, I need a first person shooter footage in a game. It's about school shootings, and the shooters we need a first person shooter game for them to play. How much? Uh, I
Yeah,
think they'd
id
be
at
like,
that point.
no. No one who
Although John
makes
Romero,
games,
man,
no one who makes
yeah,
games would be cool with their game being used in that way. Um,
right.
But the very free Nazi footage, that's real stuff right there. The
Yeah,
kids sit around watching Nazi documentaries
of
about
course they do.
propaganda, specifically about propaganda, and um,
You know what
you
I
know,
thought was interesting about that whole segment is that, from what I understand, that clip that they're watching is about how Hitler co-opted things from other dictators, and that nothing
right?
he did was original. So
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting. There's like these guys are just mimicking what they've seen. They're not doing anything original, not doing anything that they've like thought of. You know,
Right.
this guy Alex is a capable artist where he could funnel his angst into that, but he decides to go on a spree killing.
Right. And their method for getting guns is they just order them off the internet.
Yeah, like guns.com.
Yeah, I mean, like, and it's like this GeoCities
Yes.
websites.
It was
I,
awesome.
I mean, it may have well been a MySpace page selling guns, and they're like, "Ooh,
Yeah. It was very much like the Ammo Nation
yeah."
website, Grand Theft Auto.
But
Um,
it's so silly, but at the same time, like, you can get guns that way.
yeah.
I've been to those websites, and that's not unlike what they look like. The accuracy, despite low quality, was fair.
You know what's
Um,
interesting, or I guess funny, more so, um, is when I was in high school, my buddies and I were really into airsoft, and
yeah,
we would, in high school, in our library, our library, would go to airsoft like gun websites and like look at, and these are really good. The Tokyo Maru or whatever,
yeah,
like really realistic looking airsoft guns. I had teachers saw us, librarians saw us. Nobody questioned like what are these guys doing? Just looking at airsoft guns. Like we were talking about, oh, I want to get this Desert Eagle, I want to get this, I want to get this,
yeah,
and I just it, to think now, if you even said the word gun in school now, it's like
yeah. You get suspended.
yeah. So uh, yeah. So Alex and Eric, um, they we see Alex walking around the school, and this is one of those scenes where you said, you know, the sounds they're not listening. It's because he's taking notes. He's looking at, I guess, egress and degress. He's looking at how many people, and he's taking notes. And then once he puts his notebook away, everything floods back in, and then he like holds his head, like, it's so
Right.
loud. So,
Yeah. So we get this idea that Alex is crazy because of the noise. He has to cover his
yeah,
ears, and everyone else is just like, "This is normal."
I
But
feel kind of bad for Eric because I feel like Eric is misguided, kind of he's pulled along into Alex's deal. I only say I feel bad for him because I feel like he would not have carried this out if it were just him. And I
maybe
think that that becomes evident at the end.
that's fair. And Alex pretty clearly doesn't care much about Eric.
No.
Um, Even though when they're getting ready, we see this excruciatingly long shot of Alex getting into the shower and then him in the shower for like several minutes cleaning. And I'm like, I swear this is a movie and not just like Pornhub of watching a teenage boy in a shower. And like
Yeah.
nothing's happening. It's just shooting him in the shower. And then eventually Eric comes in to join him in the shower. And it's like, oh, they were gay the whole time.
Which
And
I thought when I first saw it.
yeah. And I was just like, that shot did not need to be that long.
No.
And it feels very real. We'll get into real versus fantasy later, but um, homosexuality being, item 20 on the why did they do this list.
Yeah, it's because he even says, Eric's the one that says, I've never even kissed anybody before, and then that's when Alex is like, and then kisses him. And so I think I missed that part when I first saw it. I was like, oh, they were gay, scandalous. And when I was doing some reading about the film and saw that Van Zant's like a big name in new queer cinema, and I was like, but he's not gay. Oh, yes, he is. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But it's just one more thing that happens in this movie, of like several, I don't want to call them red herrings, but like even the book club that will, we see towards the beginning of the film, but then also during the shooting is
it's
talking.
A Gay Straight Alliance meeting.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's a GSA meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
That where it feels like there is a divide amongst whether it's okay to be homosexual, and it just kind of feels like not a lot of effort was put into that. To if they're going to make a point of making it about that, and they don't. We'll get to that kind of later, but they just kind of want to throw. Oh, and also, did you know?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it just, I don't know. I'm not feeling
the strangest scene to me. It just did not feel like it fit anywhere in the film. Is between John and Acadia, the girl that goes to the GSA meeting.
Yeah.
Where John walks into what could have been like a conference room at a hotel or motel.
Yeah.
With this ugly carpet, one of those divider kind of curtain walls. And he's just kind of like holding his face, and she tries to comfort him, kisses him, and like, that's it. Like, that's the all interaction between. Are they dating? I don't know. Are they just good friends? Who knows?
Yeah.
Is she a lesbian? Is she gay? Is he gay? Who knows? Because then she goes off to this GSA meeting, where, yeah, what's not funny, if there's any humor at all to this, is when one of the kids gets shot in the hallway, and the black teacher goes over and says, "Oh damn, they shot him," and like, that's it. That's all he said, and drags his body into the room. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Damn, and they don't even close the door. They're not even. They're like,
no.
Man, there's the kid that was shot. I guess that shooting's over. And like, that teacher has like no excitement about it. Not like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, damn,
he's just like, well,
like, he's seen some shit.
Let's move him over there. All right, kids.
The dude's from the inner city of Portland. He knows what's up.
Someone get the window. We're doing this again. Like,
I know, like,
I feel like it, like this is the guy from like the hyperbolic South Park season, where like they did a whole season where every day there was a school shooting at South Park Elementary. And it was hysterical because like the parents are like, you're overreacting if you feel in danger at South Park Elementary. Like, there's a shooting every day. Someone is dying. And they're like, yeah, but we can't let that infringe on our freedoms. And so like, it to me felt like this guy was like, had seen so many shootings. He's like, oh man.
Like, he could have just said, "You killed Kenny, you bastards."
But like, yeah. So the GSA meeting, I guess, they all start climbing out the window, and they leave the shot dude.
Yep.
Like, they just leave him. Like, even the teacher. And this cracks me up. So there is a teacher in the GSA meeting, right?
Yeah.
and we see them all like climbing out the window when it's Benny's turn, and he walks in the room and everybody's going out. That teacher is not in the room at that time. When those students are going out the window, that teacher has been
He's
outside.
gone.
He is across the street.
He's out of there.
He's like, kids, I'm going out the window. You can be second and third, but I'm going to be first.
Yep.
Like, I just was like, did the teacher leave? Has he already gone out the window? Or was he like, you kids go out the window, I'm going to track this guy down? No, probably not.
Nope.
No, he just...
I mean, he couldn't even bother to close the door. So
didn't even close the door.
The most baffling character in this entire film, though, has got to be Benny, because they take the time to introduce him as a character, and he's a character for 5 minutes.
Yeah. And he's just walking.
He just walks
looking
around like... Now, is it strange that the only two black characters in the entire film are the ones that see the violence firsthand and have no reaction?
I think maybe Gus Van Sant didn't know any black people. And like, maybe this is just like, hey, you want to be in a movie? All right, let's do this. No. I think because it's supposed to represent a lot of the Colorado shootings and was it the Columbine?
Yeah, Columbine was 3 years before this came out.
Yeah, it's just a lot of white guys.
Very fresh.
Yeah, but Benny bothers me because like I don't know of anyone who'd be like, that wall's on fire and people are running away. There's a dude who's shot. I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah,
but
he goes
not
in
like
and just kind of helps Acadia out the window, and then that's it. He doesn't leave.
But he's like in shock. Like he doesn't just not leave. He's like walking around. He's not hiding. He's not sneaking. He's not like looking quietly. He's just like, I'll walk over here now. And then he sees a guy with a gun and he's like, I'll walk over to that guy. I don't understand. I don't know what the motivation was there.
And of course, naturally, we want him to be like, oh, he's going to be the one that sees him and takes him down. That's why he's introduced.
I think in a lot of ways it was to add color to the body count. Because if you remember, the Columbine guys definitely mentioned race to the people they were killing. And, you know, we got the shots of the Nazi propaganda. So, sure, you know, they could kill, the black guy just because he's black. I think it would have made more sense if it were the teacher instead of Benny.
Yeah, yeah.
And I honestly don't know why Benny is around.
Yeah, I didn't remember him. I very clearly remembered Michelle and John from the first moment that I saw this movie to right now. Mm-hmm. Those two stuck in my head. And then I remembered the Alex and Eric. I knew that there were other characters, but those were the ones that I remembered. And I completely forgot that Benny was in this at all. That he was given a title card, that he was given, time. 20
minutes of what would be a continuous shot, but it actually cuts. So here's why I think Benny has a title card. You ready? You know those long shots that we see throughout the movie that nothing happens? I think they were filming that long shot where nothing happens and something messed up. I think this is a filming error where they're like, we got to make a cut here. Fuck it. We'll cut it and introduce Benny here in the middle. Like, this is like 3 minutes into his scene where we've been following him for 3 minutes of one continuous shot. And then suddenly we get a title card. I think everyone else's title card was at the beginning of their scene. This is, I think, to cover a mistake.
It's very, very, very plausible.
Um,
With having a $3 million budget and the fact that they had to shut down a school or at least have it during the summer.
right.
They had to pay all their crew. I'm sure Van Zant had some sort of fee. Yeah, I mean, $3 million goes quickly in a film.
It does. And I think, and it's not a big deal if it weren't so, like, to me, this was obvious. Like, you had already established that you're going to be following characters around from behind with the camera behind them, just like we did with Benny. We're going to see these long shots, just like we do with Benny. And people will be introduced before they're seen. And so when we saw this thing with Benny, and then there's the sudden like middle cut of, by the way, this is Benny, to me, it shines a big spotlight on this is different. And probably don't notice that because the shot continues. After the title card, it continues and we're still watching. So I really think this had to be covering a mistake of some kind.
Yeah.
A train going by, like, who knows? It doesn't have to be like, someone on set messed up. A plane could have gone overhead and they're just like, oh crap, hang on,
right.
I mean, hell, it could have been a plane went overhead and the guy who plays Benny goes, are we continuing with that? And the guy's like, yes. Yes, continue.
He's not an actor.
Right, because I don't think any of them are actors, and that's not a big deal. Like, if you're not an actor, you don't know to cheat to the camera, which most of the actors don't do. You don't know to overpronounce what you're saying, which most of the actors don't do. There's a lot of someone with the basics of acting wouldn't have done this, and that's fine. And I think he was going for realism.
Yeah. Have you seen Dazed and Confused?
Yeah.
So the most frustrating part of that I love that movie, by the way. Most frustrating part is Wiley Wiggins, the guy that plays Mitch, who he'd pinch the bridge of his nose.
Yeah.
Oh man, like that was his way of showing frustration. And he does it like 6 or 7 times, very noticeably during the movie. To the point that my friends and I used to have a drinking game of every time he pinched his bridge of his nose, he had to take a drink. And I was just thankful that there were nothing like that our characters did. There was nothing that John does. Like, he doesn't or run his hand through his hair and stuff. Like, it's just, they were just very natural and very those Nathan and Carrie very likely probably were dating in real life, and
sure.
Which, I think just it's both a credit and a disservice to the entire film.
There is so when I was in acting school, there are yes, acting school is a real thing. But there is a lot of attention paid to the difference between what is natural and what is naturalistic. So when you do an action, you want it to be natural. You don't want it to be like awkward that you have done something. For example, like if I were to pick up a cup, I don't want it to be like, say a line and then turn and pick up the cup. That's not very natural. You just kind of want it to be a thing. Oh, pick up a cup. But you don't want it to be naturalistic, which is what I would be more realistic, but it's not performance. The difference between throwing something where you just kind of toss something, that would be naturalistic. Whereas if you were performing it, you'd want it to be natural, but also be able to be read as what you were doing with a wind up and a throw. So that would feel natural, but not naturalistic. This movie is naturalistic to the point where when things aren't natural, it stands out so much more.
Yeah.
The 3 girls going into the bathroom to throw up. I almost felt like there should be a laugh track, hey
Yeah.
guys, the pretty girls they're all bulimic and they all go to the bathroom together to throw up. I'm like, yeah, congratulations, you've made fun of the preppy girls. Good
You
job.
know, and that scene in itself is frustrating to me as well because they could have. He already implied that because they
Right,
get these full lunches and they take a few bites and then that's it.
right.
You could have very easily said, okay, without having to go into they all go into the stalls and start hacking at the same time. It's unnecessary,
Yeah.
and I think that it's what does it say? What the director to the audience? It's like he doesn't have enough faith that they're going to make that connection, and if
Yeah.
they don't, then it doesn't matter. It's not a huge deal.
Right, right. And it wasn't like central to the story that they have eating
No,
disorders. It was like and like there's so many other ways you can convey this. And
yeah,
they didn't. They chose to have them in the bathroom. And the reason they're all in the bathroom together is so that later on they can all get shot in the bathroom together. But like it was really unnatural, like going from the conversation they're having about like, oh, she punched this girl in the face. Really, she punches girls in the face? And like, yeah, you don't want to get punched in the face, so you want to avoid like this really natural conversation to the point of being naturalistic. They're not enunciating their words, they're not projecting, they're not cheating to the camera, they are just having a conversation, and it
yeah,
feels very natural. And then that suddenly dies and we have like, I mean, comedic level of barf noises.
right.
It's just like it broke me out like so much, like from the movie, which was already like kind of like bordering naturalistic anyway. I mean, it bordering nothing, I mean, it was all naturalistic. But and that's a choice. It's fine to make that choice. It's not a choice
Sure.
I would have made. I don't consider it a correct choice, but it was deliberate at least.
Yeah.
I don't feel the comedic value of the hurling noises was deliberate. um,
Something that stuck out to me, and this is kind of like my final thought, if you will,
yeah,
is so at the beginning we have John and his dad driving, and his dad's like, do you want to go hunting this weekend? And he's like, yeah, fine, let's go hunting. And at the end, when everything is kind of said and done, Alex is sitting down, or he's walking through the cafeteria, and you hear birds and you hear water running, and it's like he's in the woods, like he's been hunting the whole time.
that's interesting. Did not make that
Yeah.
connection at all.
So, and I, as soon, because I had heard that, as I think it does it a few more times as he's walking around. It's only him that does it with.
Yeah,
Um, and I was like, okay, is he trying to make a statement that this is the hunting is the same thing? I don't know, but yeah, it's like that gets broken. Like the birds and then the water goes away once Eric shows up, and then Alex shoots him and kills him.
Alex shoots him and is like, oh, did you have fun? Did you do the job? Yeah, I
Yeah,
did some stuff. Okay, dead. All right.
and most of all, have fun. Like
Most
that
of
was the
all,
most unsettling part of the entire movie.
just have fun.
Yeah, God, like
Like,
these aren't real people.
right. So the only thing I saw about this movie before watching it is I read a review about it that basically talked about the video games, going, does the movie blame video games for the violence? And the article I had read decidedly said yes, because it had pointed out similar shots from the video game to the other thing, which I saw. I did. But when you asked me to watch this, you said to decide why the movie was called Elephant.
Yeah.
So this is going to be long, and I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
When I was in high school, I read a short story about a guy gets a pet elephant, right? and he's in this town, and he gets a pet elephant, but nobody in town knows what elephants are, and nobody in town knows what the animal is that he has brought home. And it's in the middle of the night, so he's like, I'm going to bed, the animal's in the garage, like, leave me alone. And people on the outside are like, we all want to know what the animal is. So someone goes in and they feel the trunk, and they come running out and they're like, it's a snake. And then someone else comes in, I think it's called Elephants in the Dark. Someone else goes in and they feel the leg, and they're like, no, it's tall like a tree. It's this big tree-like structure. And someone else comes in and they feel like the ear, and they're like, no, it's like a bat, like huge wings and stuff. And someone feels the tail, and they're like, oh, it's long like a brush, it's got a weird tuft like a brush. And someone's like, feels the tusk and is like, no, it's got sharp teeth. And this movie brought that like way back, because I honestly think that this is why the movie is called Elephant, is because they show the video games and make the comparison. They show the Nazi propaganda and make the comparison. They show, bullying and, being rejected. They talk about bullying. They talk about the easily accessible guns. And all of these are all reasons. These are not any one reason. They all are shown with the same level of lack of definitiveness of this is the why. They don't leave a manifesto. They don't, they do talk to people and say, hey, you were an asshole. That's why I'm doing this, but like ultimately we all have the elephant in the dark that we have felt, and we have, that's what I think it's called, Elephant.
Huh. Yeah, I've heard that story as blind men trying to describe an elephant.
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, I'm
sure we all read a variation of it in high school.
Sure, yeah. Sure. I meant to look up why, like, if he's ever given a statement as to why it's called that. Sure. I think I've always just, and this is not deep at all, I think I've always just thought it was called Elephant because he doesn't want you to forget what happened.
Fair enough.
And elephants don't forget. I think it's probably not that easy.
We're probably looking way too deep into it. We're gonna be like, why is it called Elephant? He's gonna be like, because the characters all have really big dicks.
Huge. There
Huge.
Is when Alex is playing the piano, there is a drawing of an elephant on the wall.
Is there?
Uh-huh.
I didn't notice. I was mostly looking around the room at, like, very clearly not a set. Like, nobody decorated this. This was like somebody's house.
Yeah.
And like the whole production was that way, where it's like you look at it and you're like, this isn't a set. They were just like, hey, where are we going to film this scene? My cousin's out of town. We'll go to his house.
Yeah, it's I think you're right with it being naturalistic, and it adds to the, I guess, realism, because there's not people out there like with like light screens and stuff either. It's just like a handheld, maybe a few dolly shots here and there. There's no jib. Well, there's a jib at the beginning with the car, or it was I don't know what they did with that. Maybe it was a jib. I don't know. But yeah, it was very low key, and for better or worse, the film that came of it was what we got.
Oh man! So another thought I had on some of the long shots was that they filmed the movie and were like, "Crap, it's only 30 minutes long. We need to add some really long shots of people walking." That goes absolutely nowhere.
I was very surprised when I was watching the movie, because I was taking notes and everything.
Yeah.
And I was very much engrossed in what was going on, then when I checked the time, like an hour had gone by, and I did not feel like it. As excruciating as some of those shots are, watching people just walk, or watching Eli treat the film, just very rocking the film back and forth. Everything, I keep going between everything feels like it has a purpose to everything feels accidental. But I mean, I don't think I'll ever watch the movie again. I will still recommend it to people. I still think that it's pertinent. I think that
Do you think you're going to live exactly 80 minutes too long? Well, tell you what, we can take that 80 minutes out of your life right now.
Never get it back. Yeah, it's made me want to go and watch some more of his stuff. I tried watching Last Days, which is the third in his death trilogy, as it's called, starting with Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one's number 2, and then Last Days, which is it's supposed to be Kurt Cobain. The guy's not named Kurt Cobain, but it's supposed to be a retelling of his last few days. So I tried watching that and fell asleep. To what?
His name is Burt Bocane.
Yeah, that's it. With Mermana is the name of the band.
Utopia. My band is called Utopia. So, having seen the movie recently, do you still like the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I think I like it for the same reasons I did before. I like the structure because you have to pay attention. Yeah. You really have to pay attention to what's going on. That's not even true. I was going to say you have to be paying attention to know what's going on, but you don't. Things just, you can infer what's happening. I don't know, man. I want to say I like it still, but it's not as good as I thought it was. But I just think that there's still some interesting stuff going on in it.
I just really wanted something to happen. And because I knew the movie ended with a shooting, I spent like the first half of the movie going, someone shoot someone. Please shoot someone. Somebody. And
I should have told you not to want it too bad. Like I told you with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You can't watch that movie wanting it to be a Tarantino movie.
Okay. I mean, I don't think that anything about this movie, I don't think I could have gone into this movie with anything and been surprised, delighted. Right. I think the movie was always going to be this is disappointing. Sorry, it's disappointing. And that's the point of the movie, is that it's disappointing. I believe that. I believe that the movie was supposed to be a letdown, as it doesn't provide a clear explanation of why it doesn't. We don't get the comeuppance for the characters we want. I mean,
yeah, it even ends with Alex catching Nathan and Carrie and teasing them, taunting them, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and then the film just ends.
And what kind of high school has its own butchery in the cafeteria? They were hanging cows.
Yeah.
What high school is okay, bring in the animals, we're going to kill them here. Or kill the animal, but don't cut it up. We'll take care of that. We got this. We want to make sure
about that. That is really, really strange, especially when you have all of the character. Well, not all of them. The characters talking about how bad the school lunch is. I'm like, if you've got fresh beef like that, how bad can it be?
They've got the whole cow in there, and it's we don't want to let any part of this go. We are going to cook the shoulder. These kids are going to have steak, and then they're going to have the bacon section. We're going to chop up this rump roast, and this is going to be our beef stew. The whole animal?
right?
What
Maybe
school?
because
Like,
it's Oregon. I don't know.
but like, not only do they have the whole animal, they bought the whole animal. Like, like they go through those. And it's not like the school district had them. Like the school district is like, yep, we just bought a bunch of cows and we're going to divide the parts up amongst the schools. They're like, nope, this school gets 3 cows. Lunch this week is going to be a lamb, the whole thing. Let kids just cut their own part off, you know?
Yeah, just
We
got
have
like a whole meat cutting section.
the kids walk past the tank with the lobsters in it, and they're like, which one am I going to have for lunch today? I'll have that one. The fighter.
These damn kids. They don't know what they've got these days.
Like, I remember seeing it. Like, I didn't register the cows at the time because I was sitting there going, please shoot them and end the scene. I know you're going to shoot them. Like, Nathan, the football player, was like inches from the dude with the gun who knew the dude with the gun was coming and was like, whoa, let me step back slightly. I know you shot all those dudes. And I'm like, you didn't hit him. You're going to get shot now. So shoot him. And the scene, 5 minutes later, please shoot them and end the scene. And then like later you look back and like, why are there cows? But you know, maybe they weren't cows. Maybe they were just huge goats.
Or maybe they were elephants.
Maybe they were elephants. And that's the meaning, is it ends with the butchery of elephants.
The killing of a sacred lamb or killing of a sacred deer. Instead, it's an elephant.
Oh. And you know, maybe Gus was trying to compare the kids to being slaughtered like animals, but in no way was that normal.
No. That would be a really, really off base comparison. I think you might be right, because that's such a weird like prop to have in a school.
They didn't find that in the school and go, all right, you know, we'll film this next to the cows.
Killing to a butchering of meat animals is, I think PETA would agree, but
it just it's so like weird. And what's with the like, okay, so the kid sits down, Alex sits down, just to jump back into plot for a second, and takes a drink from a random cup. And Eric's like, hey, don't drink that, you'll get herpes. And they like chuckle because they both know they're about to die. But like, why was this important? Why did this need to be seen? And it just, there is no pacing to this movie. None at all.
I wonder if that was said, because we've seen throughout their scenes that Eric has a sense of humor. Because I think Alex says, like, what's that smell or whatever when they're eating breakfast? And he's like, oh, it's just your mom. So it's kind of like his humor, and I think it drives home the point that Eric does not realize that he's about to die at the hands of his partner.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's very likely a stretch too, so. Sorry.
Man. It's okay. So, I guess that is Elephant.
That's Elephant.
So next week, we're going to go from a movie where nothing happens, literally about a school shooting, and nothing happens, to a movie where stuff doesn't stop happening. Owed in large part to the trailer for the sequel coming out this week. Let's watch Train to Busan.
Perfect. I've been wanting to watch Train to Busan because, one, Philip DeFranco talks about it like
all the time.
Weekly. Yeah. He's like, if you still haven't seen it, I'm like, Phil, I'll watch it at some point. Trust me. And it's been years now that I've been saying that.